It's hard to believe, but five-term Hawaii State Representative Tom Brower has been on a smashing spree throughout his state of Hawaii. He has been on a 2-week spree of smashing homeless people's possessions. He says that if he sees shopping carts, I will destroy them so that they can't be pushed onto the street, which shopping carts are typically used by homeless people so that they can, carry their stuff around because they don't have a house to keep them in. He says that he is, quote, disgusted with homeless people and that he's destroyed about 30 shopping carts, among other things, in the last 2 weeks. He says that he's doing this so he can, quote, do something practical about the homeless problem. I didn't know this, but has the highest rate of homelessness in the country.
So this guy's obviously a Republican, right? I mean, he sounds like a Republican.
Actually, one of the surprising aspects of this story is that this state representative is a Democrat.
Oh,
yeah.
Snap. Didn't see that coming.
Yeah. While other locations like New York and Chicago and San Francisco are trying to solve the problem of homeless people not having any storage space for their stuff by giving the poor and the homeless free storage rooms, instead of doing something like that, instead Hawaii legislators have approved $100,000 for the next 2 years to fund a bunch of one-way plane tickets for homeless people to be sent to other states in the country.
So what this guy already reminds me of, when I read the story of him going around and smashing carts, I immediately thought of none other than Kai, the hitchhiking, the hitchhiker. You know, smash, smash, smash. That's what I thought of.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
No, this is terrible, and I'm wondering how the state representative, aside from the fact that he's a state representative, is actually managing to get away with this vandalous behavior.
Yeah, it seems to be pretty immature right off the bat.
Well, it seems immature, it seems a little bit insane, and it should be destruction of property.
Yeah, but here's the thing: nobody cares about the homeless people, and we see this all over. I'm getting a little into a serious mode now. We have this attitude, this mentality here in America that homeless people aren't people. They don't matter.
Right.
We shouldn't care about them. They're a blight. We need to get them out of here, as evidenced by, instead of using that money to create shelters and to do other things, they're buying them plane tickets and shipping them off the island.
They're making them someone else's. They're making them someone else's problem.
Absolutely.
And it's very disturbing to hear a state representative, a Democratic state representative, supposedly talk about how, quote, disgusted he is by homeless people. A significant amount of those homeless people have served our country in the military. Another significant amount of those homeless people are children. Another significant amount of those homeless people are the mentally ill. So
it just shows that it doesn't really matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. You could still be a dick and be either. So.
Absolutely, of course.
Dan, what are your thoughts on this, man?
I think one of the interesting things, from the Canadian perspective, is we have a little bit more of a social safety net up here, so it's always weird to see. But what was really disturbing about this story was, I don't know if anyone actually watched the local news piece on it. So he's literally walking around with a sledgehammer on his shoulder, and there's a moment where he confronts this homeless man, and the homeless man's like, well, it's a bit concerning. You seem a bit threatening. And then it cuts to a clip, and he goes, I don't know why anyone thinks I'm threatening. Well, he has like a sledgehammer, like he's walking tall or something, like he's the Rock, and so it's sort of as you said off the top, these things start to almost come away as onion pieces where you just can't believe it. The other thing that I think is funny is he's smashing the wheels of these shopping carts you could just return the shopping carts. Like, they do belong to some store somewhere. Like, I don't know if you necessarily I'll have sudden have to become like Monday Night Raw and start, smashing furniture. But he did actually stop today. Like, he did come out and, like, what they said, he all of a sudden said, okay, I get that this looks a little quirky. I'll stop with the smashing of shopping carts. So, I mean, I guess that's progress, but when I was looking at the thing that I think that you really have to look at with this story is yes, there's one kooky guy who's going around with a sledgehammer, but I think the thing that is more concerning is the $100,000. I don't understand, and other cities have done this too, where they're paying to get rid of people. Now, Hawaii, they say, does this because it's so hard to, like, you can't really walk away from Hawaii. Like, you can't hitchhike so much to get out of Hawaii. So hence the flights. But I mean, it's troubling that that's the first step you go to, where you're like, wow, we have a lot of homeless people. Who's got some air miles? Like, it's it's a messed up sort of train of thought.
Right,
But,
and I didn't know that Hawaii had the highest rate, not the highest sheer number, but the highest rate per capita of homeless people in the country. They have over 17,000 homeless people on those islands.
and
Well-
they do blame that on that. Part of the reason for that is that if you have that problem, they can't go anywhere, so they're not getting on a bus when they do get $5 to go somewhere else. But it's troubling.
Right, and some more facts I want to add into this is, you wonder why they have such a large homeless population. Well, they also have the highest cost of living in the nation.
Right.
And so, and of course housing is the primary driver of that cost. So you've got really, really expensive housing, and that's only part of the equation. For example, like a single family home in Hawaii costs on average of over $600,000 just
Right.
to buy. So, and it costs almost 40% more to live in Hawaii than anywhere else on the mainland. And you combine this other factor, the minimum wage. Do you know how much the minimum wage is in Hawaii? $7.25.
The federal wage.
God.
The federal wage. So all these factors together, plus the fact that Hawaii has no oil or anything like that, so they basically have to send it over from the mainland, and obviously they're gonna charge more for gasoline and stuff over in Hawaii. So you've got rising energy, rising food costs, and this astronomical standard of living and cost of living that you have there. Of course, you're going to have the highest homeless population as well.
Right.
And what are they doing to address any of these issues? Ship them off somewhere else.
That's the key, right? They're not doing anything to address the problems that they have outside of, let's move them away from downtown and somewhere else. Let's make them
Or
something
smash
else
their
for.
carts with
Right.
a sledgehammer. That'll show 'em.
Yeah. The smashing the carts with the sledgehammer, when I first heard that he was destroying all the shopping carts in the city, I kind of laughed a little bit because I just pictured this guy running to like supermarkets and just smashing all the carts. But
You're
like,
not far off.
but the guy is obviously like he's a ridiculous person. There's something wrong with him. He's actually doing this because the 5 like extreme bills that he tried to pass to get rid of homeless people, I think one of them may have made it actually try to make it illegal to be homeless, because that's an easy way to solve the problem. Like they weren't going anywhere because they were so extreme. And the only positive I could find in this story is that it wasn't a Republican state senator, because the state of Hawaii has one Republican state senator, and if that was the guy that was smashing all this stuff, then it would just not be a good look.
No,
Really?
they've done enough to smear their name already. But yeah, and one of the other things he was doing is he said that if he saw a homeless person sleeping during the day, that he'd wake them up and tell them to move along. So
While holding his sledgehammer, of course.
right, of course.
And you wonder why people think that he's a menacing figure, as Dan pointed out.
And just a brief note on the side too, kind of unrelated to Hawaii, but in New York there was a the John Stossel thing. Like John Stossel just loves that clip for whatever reason. But my wife and I were talking about it today, and it's just like we don't understand. Instead of like laughing at them or ridiculing them or blaming them, why don't you actually look at the factors that contribute to that kind of like we were just talking about, right? Like the housing part and the economic downturn. I mean, we just had a 2008 financial crash that was caused primarily by the housing market. So, you know, maybe these guys probably do need some help. We just had a major war in Iraq, another major war in Afghanistan. So, I mean, what did we honestly expect? Did we just think that, oh, well, you know, who cares? I mean, that part's hard for me to understand.
I mean, to be fair about the Stossel clip, his overall point was that you should give to charities instead of individuals on the street. But
and I get that point, and I
Yeah.
but the Hawaii problem is they had an economy that was also really dependent on tourism, and when the downturn happened, those tourism dollars dried up. So like it seems weird that you're paying people like you're paying people to leave the state like that, but I can understand why the people, why the citizens of Hawaii, the non-homeless citizens of Hawaii, are actually supporting the laws. Maybe not this guy smashing things, but the laws. Like people loved Giuliani before because he promised to get the homeless people off the street, and like there's jokes that go around that he secretly killed a bunch of them, but like he did. He basically got a lot of the homeless people off the street, and people love that because they don't like seeing them. Like I understand that you got to find a way to solve the problem, but like that's one of the reasons that this guy felt so empowered is because people don't like seeing homeless people.
Yeah, Sean, you're exactly right, and it's a pure vision. Like they look at it from a vision standpoint, where you don't want to see the homeless people. You don't. It's not good for your tourism dollars. But again, that's not really. To me, the more practical way of solving the problem would be to probably build a shelter, build a soup kitchen, or build like a project that's kind of, you know, not really out of the way, but more or less it provides like a safety net, right? Or, you know, help these people get what about the mental health facilities? What about, you know, the training programs? Those things to me seem, yes, more expensive in the short term, but much less expensive in the long term. And I think like this is only one problem where that's the main crux of the matter. People look at short-term solutions rather than, okay, how do we figure this out over the long term? And that's a epidemic from homeless people to, you know, economics, everything.
Yeah, and to build on your point, Mike, there's some really disturbing facts in that roughly 40% of U.S. homeless don't have access to a shelter. And not only that, but a lot of the programs to reduce homelessness are being slowly phased out.
Right.
With all of our draconian budget cuts that we're having today, we're embracing austerity. And, of course, that's going to only increase the number of homeless and not really solve the problem. So, and you're also right about the point that you made about optics. People don't like to see the homeless. Of course, I don't like to see people homeless. But I would rather solve the problem instead of out of sight, out of mind, sweep them under the rug.
Right. It's a psychological thing. It's about aesthetics, and it's a very superficial, selfish kind of desire to just sweep the issue under the rug and ignore it rather than actually solving the issue. And we did a story. Yeah,
we a cop out because then they can go in campaign and say, look, I solved the homeless problem.
And we did a story not long ago about, you know, Tampa and how they were basically banning homeless people from hanging out downtown now. But they weren't giving the homeless people very many options because there weren't enough shelters for as many homeless people as there were. And the shelters that were there, most of them charged per night for the homeless people to stay there, and
right.
many of the homeless shelters were also specialty shelters too. So if you didn't have a drug problem or you weren't, you know, a victim of domestic violence, you weren't allowed to be there anyway.
Right, and we have a viewer here of TYT Community that's he's a homeless gentleman, right, and he's got a disability, but he's not disabled enough according to the Social Security Administration to actually get it, and so he's been staying in and out of shelters, and you know he's having a hard time finding work, and he's actually faced a lot of discrimination, and that's something that we don't touch we don't really touch on a lot when we talk about homeless people. It's just the amount of social discrimination that they receive, and just the attitudes of people towards the homeless. And I don't think we touch on that enough.
It's the stigma of welfare too, because if you're on welfare, if you need to go to a shelter, it's like, oh, you must have failed or you must have done anything. My wife and I discuss this part all the time too. I'm always reminded of the story of J.K. Rowling, who did the Harry Potter deal, where she lost her billionaire status for giving so much back to charities and stuff like that, because when she was down and out, whenever she had problems, she did get on welfare. She did go through all these things, and those things helped to pull her out. Then she went on to write a multi-billion-dollar franchise and enriched all of our lives as a result. I really think that we need to kind of shift away from demonizing these people, or just assuming that oh, I don't, that's nasty. But if we invest in the correct, there's smart investments and there's dumb investments, but if we invest in them in a smart way, we can actually get more in the long term, not necessarily in the short term. It won't happen in, she didn't write Harry Potter in 1 year, right? She wrote it over the course of 10 years, a decade. So these things might take decades, or they might take, a longer than the microwave generation wants to do it. But honestly, that's what needs to be done.
But that's going to take a change in perception as well. It's going to take us not demonizing the homeless and the poor. It's going to take us actually humanizing homeless people, the feeling that they're human again, rather than constantly dehumanizing them and making them feel like urchins of society that aren't worth the time and effort, that aren't worth the investment that could possibly enrich our society as a whole.
Well, there needs to be a focus on the love aspect too. I mean, there's a lot of hate floating around, but I mean, really, honestly, is there very much love going towards the homeless people? Much caring, and they sense that, so they're just like, well, why would I try if nobody else is necessarily trying? So I can understand your point, Rihanna. Thank you.
As their lone Canadian on the panel, not to come off like a complete communist up north here, but one of the things that's sort of shocking to I think a lot of people outside of America is this goes to your healthcare debate too, which it really does just like stagger many European and like Canada, and like you kind of sit in awe. Is that there's this weird thing, and it's not just America, but it really takes root there, which is you don't seem to have, in a general sense, like a feeling of everything. I guess is put through the lens of your own bootstraps. Pick yourself up by your own bootstraps. And it's a really weird thing for other nations to look at. Like, we would assume that you take care of homeless people. Don't get me wrong. Canada has a ton of issues with child poverty and everything like that. We have the same problems that any other nation does. But like, whatever the issue is that comes up, whether it's paying for healthcare or helping the homeless, there seems to be this pushback more by right-wingers, but as we see here, this guy's a Democrat too, which is, if you did something to be where you're at, that's your own fault. And I feel like yes, we could deal with homeless people and talk about that issue between mental health problems and all that, but I feel like the larger conversation that America still isn't having is, why is that fear your neighbor, and why is that I don't understand why somebody's in the position they are, so therefore I don't care about them, so prevalent. Like, to watch Fox News during this healthcare debate and Obamacare, yes, they've totally made a mess of it, and it's painful to watch that website, become a complete train wreck. It's like, you might as well have done like a GeoCities site. But it's very weird from a Canadian perspective to watch people be like, why should we give that person money? Like, why should we let them have healthcare? Why should I pay for others? It's like, because we're a society.
But I think it's that lack of empathy and the lack of community. We've all been taught here in America that it's up to you to make your own success, and that we shouldn't rely on others in order to build it. You remember, I'm sure all of you guys remember the "you didn't build that" moment during the election,
right?
Where President Obama was pointing out the fact that none of us got here on our own, is that we all benefited from infrastructure put in place by earlier generations, and so we all benefit from the contributions of others. And you saw the reaction from a lot of our right wing is, oh my God, are you saying I didn't build this business from my own hands? No, nobody's saying that you didn't put forth the effort. We're just saying that there are certain mechanisms in place and certain things that were in place that helped you get to where you're at to be able to build that business with your own hands, and no one begrudges you your business.
Right.
It's that community effort, and that's part of being in society.
Except me. I begrudge your business when you take a government loan or whatever.
Why though? Wait, why? Wait, hold on. Why?
Because it's not our responsibility as a society to give you money to build your business or whatever. Like of course people help you, but people should help you on a voluntary basis. It shouldn't be through government in most cases.
Yeah,
what
I
about
agree.
Medicare or like the post office or like every other thing that the government does on a daily basis?
Well, I mean, the post office is in the Constitution, and we also have FedEx and UPS to supplement it. So like you don't have to use the post office.
Yeah,
so you're okay with Obamacare, I guess then.
No, because you have to use Obamacare. You're mandated to buy it.
So you're not okay with car insurance?
But see, there's the framing that I have the issue with. Obamacare isn't actually a thing. Like it's what they call a law, but it's private insurance.
Right.
It's insurance reform is what it is. It's
right.
Not
so it's not actually.
helpful.
You don't go out and buy Obamacare.
Right.
You buy private insurance. And look, I'm against the idea of having to buy private insurance. I think we should have we should kick out the insurance companies, kick out the middleman, and get government insurance. That would be actually cheaper and more beneficial.
Yeah.
Medicare for all, or at least a single payer, or public option at least. But it's a whole entirely different debate. I just want to throw in a couple of more facts and actually a bright spot in this story before we go, and because I actually want to get some of our people's panelists' final thoughts on this one. Now, Rhode Island is the only state that has passed a Bill of Rights for homeless people. So that's actually really, really progressive, promising that, yes, we're going to take care of our homeless people by promising you a job, promising you a place to live, and to help you get back on your feet and to not be homeless. Because of that stigma of being homeless, you can't exactly find a good job. You can't find any job if you're homeless. It's
You
very,
put an
very,
address
very
on the application.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. So this homeless Bill of Rights is a massively progressive step into solving the homeless problem. So props to Rhode Island, because you're actually doing the right thing. You're not shipping your homeless out somewhere else. You're actually trying to solve the problem. And so, I mean, there's the one bright spot. So with that said, anybody have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I do actually have a final thought. That's really good, that aspect of it. And last time I was on this panel, we talked briefly about the Pope. And I think the more and more stuff you see from him, the more like kind of progressive leaning attitudes toward the poor, toward the homeless, the more you'll see that generally improve. Now, in my opinion, it was 2 decades too late, but all right, fine, we'll take what we can get.
Yeah.
But there is a shift happening away from that austerity, because people are honestly starting to wake up. They're like, this stuff doesn't work, because it doesn't work. I mean, like, maybe we tried it and it worked, and then we'd say, okay, well, let's keep doing it. But it clearly has not worked. So we need to take a step back and go the other route. And I think that's what the Pope is starting to talk like that. We're getting more progressive voices. We're going in that direction. Now, we're not going to be anywhere near Canada or any other European or any other industrialized nation anytime soon, but I do see a change happening.
Excellent.
I mean, Sarah Palin said what? He's too liberal, though, so it's still
yeah, that was real.
Still a hill to climb. The one thing I do want to add really quick is that just to touch back on the John Stossel thing, we're doing a bit on him on the show on Sunday, and that guy is not saying go out and be careful. He is saying about other charities. He is saying the homeless are lazy, and he's been doing it for his whole career. He did it on ABC when he's with 2020, and he's doing it still on Fox, and he's replaying that same thing. He mirrors it in they could, the first line of attack he went through was, well, they could get jobs, and he went and literally walked down the street and offered homeless people to mow his lawn. and they were like, only one guy accepted it. Like, it's onion-worthy stuff. And that's 10 years ago, and he's still at it over and over again. So I just don't buy anything else that John Stossel. He's doing the right-wing, rich Fox News, right-wing kind of corporate media bidding.
Yeah, and one other thing about that, don't call it Fox News anymore. Let's just call it Fox Propaganda Station, because that's what it is.
You know what's worse is he's on the Fox Business.
Yeah,
News.
I was gonna say that.
Like they needed to like preface that. Like the other one was what? Like the People's Network. I mean,
the Propaganda Network.
Right.
Good point. And if Sarah Palin thinks that the Pope is too liberal, wait till she finds out about that Jesus guy.
Oh,
His head will explode. Hey, thanks for watching this video. Please leave a comment below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button and share with your friends. If you want to see more, go to our channel at youtube.com/TYTNation. And if you really want to support the show, support this channel, go to our fundraising campaign at www.patreon.com/TYTNation. The website is in the description below. Thank you guys, and keep watching.